Not me, Chunk and Dunk. So now, once this dries, I'll go back and carefully peel those stickers away. And you could add another layer of glaze on top. I have found that the dots leave some of their adhesive behind, and so glaze is never going to really stick to that spot as well as it could. And in this situation, I'm just going to peel them off and let those soluble salts sort of migrate into that bare spot, and we'll get a little bit of a color halo in that spot, right?
That's really cool. So what kind of effect it would have then? It would be like a gradual change of the color? Or?
Yeah, I think the best way to see it is to...
Sorry.
You're fine. If you look, I think on here we'll see it a little pretty good. So, like, this is the strip right here. So if you look on the edges, you see how you get that little bit of an orange halo, or even up here there's some orange kind of migrating into the clay. It's spitting down in here, you see some of that. Those are the salts that are changing the color. And so you'll get that little bit of a halo.
Now, if you just left the stickers on, they would burn off.
They would burn off, but the glaze that's stuck to them is going to fall away and land on the shelf. And Zach isn't going to be happy with you.
Zach's going to come track you down.
Yeah, he will. He'll take out his knife.
You guys can get those spots and stuff like that. I like the bubbles and get it
Yeah.
pulled away. I guess you can do that in wax.
But I was going to ask, could you do those with wax also? Just wax some head
Yep.
on it?
Yep, and that's the other, thank you for bringing that up, because that's the other really nice thing about Chinos is that you'll get a result just by putting wax on the surface. Because you're... Let's just do it.
She uses white cement. Well, it might have been white cement.
Because...
I didn't want it.
That sticker that I wanted to be. Because this hasn't started to dry yet, or salts haven't started to evaporate yet, when I put the wax on here, I'm going to keep those salts from migrating into those zones. And so you'll get a color shift where the wax was because of the way the salts evaporate out around that wax. Holding a lot of things.
Signals, I'm still sending first message.
So I'll peel those stickers off later, but you can see how there's still some of that sticker left behind, some of that residue.
You file this, right? I mean, you file this, you'll see the end product of this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll try to get it in. I'll try to get it into the firing is loading right now. And so, what doesn't leave its adhesive behind is masking tape, right? So if you wanted to do a double thing, masking tape works pretty well that way, right? So. And the sky's the limit with how you deal with masking tape. You could mask off a big section, take an X-Acto knife, cut whatever pattern you want, remove the extra dip, remove that tape then, and then dip again, right? So then you'd end up with a white pot with that orange pattern left behind, right? Where you couldn't do that with wax, you wouldn't, you know, that would be bare clay all the time.
That's a great idea.
And so, yeah, where two colors work well with each other, yeah, you can get three colors out of it. Here I mean, my idea would be just tape a bunch of lines on here, dip, remove the tape, dip again.
Now, you've only dipped these two twice, or once. Do you?
This one
Well, both of
and
them.
both of these?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because I don't want them to go white, I want them to stay orangey. Yep. Where, you know, this one I saturated the inside, so I'm hoping for a bit orangier situation here and a bit whiter situation out here. Get a bit of a shift.
I have another question.
Please.
On that testing piece there on the porcelain, you actually have this black on the tip. How do you
Yeah.
get that? I mean, because that's really cool.
It's elusive. It's very elusive. It's called carbon trap for a reason, and that's where carbon has been trapped.
Right.
It has to be thick,
Okay.
and you'll start to get that carbon trap happening.
And it's also cracking. Is that because it's so thick?
Crazy.
No, that's because the glaze has so much clay in it, it doesn't fit quite right. Chinos typically have lots of clay. Really good point. Because of all the clay in these two Chino glazes, they have that crackle, but that crackle is from the tension, right? And so a great example would be making a plate that's real flat, but not trimming a foot on the bottom, right? So you can only get glaze on one side. If you pick a Chino glaze on that plate, Chino on top, bare on the bottom, that big bare expanse on the bottom, that glaze on the top is going to really be pulling and putting a compression on the piece. And then when you add hot food on top, a lot of times that will cause it to break, right? So if you've got a piece, and this would be a good example, right? So if I just did Chino here, nothing here, it might break from that tension of the glaze on the inside pulling on it. So having the glaze on as much of the piece as possible is gonna ensure that it doesn't make your piece break. So I would definitely make sure this was glazed too if I was dealing with Chinos. Some of the other glazes aren't so important, but on a plate, yeah, anything glaze, no glaze, hot food, that can be a problem. So if you're making plates, definitely always put a foot on. Another method of dipping or dealing with glazes is to do the suction cup method, and I like that method for these real sort of organic chunky pieces because it's real splashy and there's really not much control. So, you know, one way to glaze this right is with the tongs, grab it, dip it, pull it out. Another way would be to use a cup, pour the glaze on the inside, churn and dump it out, and then hold upside down and dip. Right? So you're getting one. A quicker way of doing it and a more organic way of doing it is to hold the pot just above the glaze surface and kind of pop it in and out of the glaze. And if you want to come over and see this happening, it might help you get a better idea of what's going on. So I'm gonna sort of use this as a suction cup to kind of pull glaze up on the inside by popping it in and out of there real quickly. And that'll do the inside and the outside at the same time. And again, I only do this on these organic pieces that I want to be organic. So you can see how it really left the outside real random. Let it dry a little bit. And because I'll get a color shift from a second coat, I'm going to wait for that.
It makes air bubbles.
Yep. Yeah, you get a lot more bubble. And now that second coat will land slightly differently from the first coat. So I'll get some color shifting, but a really even inside too though. Right. So I'll leave all of that stuff. If there was some up on the foot, I'd clean it off, but I
So
like
you're
that
gonna
sort of
leave some,
randomness.
You're gonna leave part of it there.
I am, and when you do have some over the, you know, on little pieces like this where there's some on the outside, it's usually fine. At least half of it, if not 2/3 of it, are covered with the glaze on the outside. It should be okay. Were this a plate, no, I wouldn't do this. But I don't make too many real organic plates either. Sort of defeats the purpose of the plate, you know. I think another really interesting idea is rubber bands, because of, you know, thinking about organic, these sort of wide, flat things. Right, so if we start to place these, and you can be as careful or random with it as you wanted, you know, right? Well, that's a pretty interesting line. Something you have a hard time doing with wax or with tape, right?
But then when you take it off, will it take off your glaze?
It's gonna be, yeah, I would let it dry completely, and then
You can
very
you
carefully,
probably cut them.
and yeah, and even
Yeah,
a
you-
little
Yeah,
slice
yeah,
and let it pop off of there might be best.
Make
Yeah.
sure that you warn the people around.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Close your
You
eyes.
should buy some of the line.
Don't give them one. Yeah, I don't want to be hit by rubber bands.
So I want to try this actually. I'm gonna take that off because I don't want that. And then pour the inside. By the way, I put this in the water right away instead of on the table because once that glaze dries in there, it's tough to get it out.
How long can you leave a glaze sit before you have to mix it again?
The Chinos you can let sit for probably 15 minutes before they start to settle out too much, but they have a high clay content, right? Other glazes that don't have so much clay in them, like the Super Tea doesn't have much clay in it at all, that glaze starts to settle pretty fast, you know, 5 minutes and I'd be stirring it again. So, you know, to be on the side of air, I would say with any of the glazes, more than 5 minutes, and you would want to, I almost forgot about that.
Oh, yeah, I was thinking.
So, just start turning. Once I know I've coated the whole thing, the bottle trick to get all that liquid out is to swirl, and it'll come out much quicker without gurgling too much.
I was gonna see what happened when you fired it with that much glazing.
I did.
I've never done this before, so I'm really curious on how it's gonna work. It could be really nice, could be pretty lame. And so, too tall to dip. This is why I put this little bump out. Not only does it catch glaze that might run, not gonna happen with Chinos, it's too stiff, it'll never run. But, it also gives you a really great place to hang on to. Without that there, it's a lot of hand strength to try to hang on to that shape without it slipping. There's my cup. I have to remind myself once in a while how I do things.
So exactly what were you doing in your 20s?
A lot of drugs. Boy, did I have fun. Don't be afraid to make a mess. That's why we have a mop. So that shaking is gonna give me some streaks.
And in my world, just equal the broken pot.
Yeah, they cause air bubbles.
Yep. So now, the trick to setting this down without waiting for it to dry is to ease that edge up onto the side of the table with your other hand. Carefully push it on, right, so like that, like that.
What is going to happen to that little one there where you put the extra wax resist lines on?
The copper red one,
Yeah.
I'm gonna put another glaze on top.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Yeah, I'm gonna dip another glaze.
Okay. It's hard.
I'm not sure past the wax or not past the wax. I haven't decided that yet. Typically, I like the cheesiness of the rutile on top of the copper red. I mean, it's like, maybe cheesy isn't the right word. Obvious would be another way to say it. I like the obviousness of it. But, you know, that's the nice thing here. Okay, white stone, what's gonna look good on top? You know, maybe maybe I'll try the super tea this time. You know, I wouldn't do, what is this, waxy black? That dry kind of texture on the lip. Bad, not gonna be good.
Yeah, it should be something glossy, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I would want to pick something glossy for sure. So, yeah, I think that super tea might be the best choice. Yeah. Typically, the Chino glazes don't do well on top of other glazes because of their stiffness. If you feel like, especially on this one, it's really rough. These are still very rough too. So watch out for Chinos on top of other glazes.
So you always want to put Chino on the bottom?
Yeah, as a general rule, that's a good idea. And sometimes, like if I were to dip Chino over the top of this copper red, that stiffness of the Chino would cause the glaze to kind of flake off of the copper red because it's trying to shrink, and the copper red that's already there isn't allowing it to shrink. If it was just bare clay, it absorbs in and it kind of sticks much better. So a lot of times the Chinos will just flake off of other glazes. Incidentally, I really like the tomato red with iron oxide because you get a nice sort of metallic-y feel to it. So yeah, it's hard to see here, but like on the edges you can see how it's picking up that iron a little bit.
I'm going to try some with the iron side because it has a really cool effect here. Like this one too. What's this?
And here's a nice way to see it, like where the super tea is. You see that like silvery halo?
Right.
You'll get a lot of that effect out of sort of thicker iron underneath the tomato. It's subtle and it seems really nice. And it could work with, another glaze, right? The texture on here, and maybe dipping into the St. John's Black and wiping away most of it, and then going into the tomato red. You'll get that iron pulling through that way too. Okay, watch your eyes. Yes.
Is it crisp line?
Pretty crisp.
Yeah, pretty crisp.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
Watch your eyes. One more.
Told you to be careful with that.
So now you would also expect the migrating of the salt
Yep.
into the strips?
Yep. I doubt that I'll have much of that white stoneware showing. I bet it'll be pretty red.
Are you going to fix air bubbles?
Nope.
No? What's going to happen?
There'll be around those bubbles. There'll be a little color shift. A little white halo around that bubble. A little bit of a deeper red in the inside. Some people actually take dish soap and put it into their Chino to get it really bubbly. So you get a lot of color variation that way. Please don't put dish soap in this one. If you want to make your own little bucket of
Yeah.
so you can take some of this out and put it into a 1 gallon bucket.
Just
Add
don't
your
put it back
dish
in.
soap, just don't put it back in. Yeah. I've tried it. I think it looks great.
Have you ever tried spraying?
Yep. Spraying is nice. It's difficult, but you can get real nice feathering action.
I tried it one time,
Uh-huh.
and it didn't turn out very good. You saw it.
It's hard to get the thickness right because you're not, here it's a given. Okay, I'm gonna dip, I'm gonna hold it in there for a second, I'm gonna pull out, and I know that I'm gonna get a thickness from that. When you're spraying, it's hard to know
Yeah,
how
you
thick
have
you
no
are.
idea how thick.
Right, and I've had the same experience where okay, I'm a little tentative, I don't want to get too much on there. Turns out it wasn't nearly enough. And so spraying is a learned practice thing for sure.
That's
It
so
can be
much-
really nice, like on this Shino pot. If I were to add iron oxide to the outside now, I'd get a real nice effect from it. And if you were to take some iron wash and spray it, oh, you could get a real nice feathering of color. And they make nice. I think it's called an atomizer, right? It's a mouth atomizer. They sell them up at United Art. You know where United Art is?
Yes.
United Art and Education.
On grape?
And Grape.
Yeah.
You wanna watch and not inhale too much.
What,
Yeah,
say again, what is it?
it's an atomizer.
What did it mean?
So what it is, I looked for mine, I couldn't find it.
I have one in my.
Okay, you can show him what it looks like. What it is it's, they usually fold up and then you can fold it open and it's a tube and a tube. One
Oh.
tube goes down, you
Okay.
hold, like you'd fill a cup.
So I know what it is.
Yep, and you put the other mouth and you blow and that,
It's a simple spray.
yep, simple sprayer. Those work really well. We don't have a spray booth here. We don't have any spray guns or a compressor. So we're sort of stuck with an atomizer. We don't have any in-house atomizers. I know
What
that.
happened? You saw this waste that I brought last time. It was
Well-
all kind of air bubbles and holes and debris.
Yeah, it's hard to get a real fine coat. It can be kind of splotchy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like using an air compressor with a gun. That's going to give you a lot finer mist. It's
There's
different.
one you can get that you can actually use one of those spray cans that you use to clean your computer feed.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, and it, can't tell you who makes it, but it's an old company. And that's what you use on it, you attach the thing to the spray can. And you get
Okay.
You get a pretty even.
And you can get a real fine mist
Yeah.
from it.
I don't know, I haven't tried it.
Look into that.
Yeah.
That sounds nice. Yeah. Those are my tricks. These brushes are really nice. And the Shino glazes. Like if we come over, we come over to the Tomoku. Or maybe actually I'll come over to the tomato. So an iron glaze on top of the Shino is going to be real nice. These brushes are really fantastic for holding a lot of material, and you can break them in half or just pull one little stem off,
Where do you
change the
get them?
size. I order them from Axner
Hobby
or
Lobby.
Big Ceramic Store. Do
Hobby
they have them at
Lobby.
Hobby Lobby?
Yes.
Cool. Did not know that. They hold a ton of glaze. And the nice thing about them is you can go thin and thick, kind of like calligraphy, right?
Nice.
Oh, that's nice. What
And
were you
then-
saying about putting iron oxide on top of the glaze?
Yeah,
You can do that.
yep. It's hard to not get it, like it likes to run because
Yeah.
it's watery.
Yeah.
Spraying is a good way to go about it. But yeah, it works underneath the glaze. It's not quite as strong. On top of the glaze, it's going to have a lot more of a color effect.
I covered a piece one time all over with iron oxide.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I liked it all. And then I poured white glaze over the top. Right?
Yeah.
And that iron oxide drifted right through that glaze in spots.
In spots.
Yeah,
Nice.
it was interesting.
So now another glaze. What looks good on top of tomato red? Well, let's try. Is that white? Yeah, let's try the white. White might be a little strong. Ah, rutile. That would be good. I don't need this in my hand. So I'm gonna pull this over here so I've got more room. Oh, that's good. Where did I put the lid for that? There it is. Just so it doesn't get any in there. So squirt bottle action. Don't want to get any drips I don't want, right? Okay. So, this is a Bill Kramer method right here. If you want to make Bill Kramer pots, this is how you do it. It doesn't work well to try to draw the line with the bottle. It works much better to pass the piece underneath the stream, okay? So I'll get the stream going. Right.
Oh, neat.
You get one of those things where you just can't be too afraid to make a little bit of a mess. Never leave your glaze inside of a squirt bottle. Most Notre Dame kids love to do that. Erase that part. Right? So here, we've got dark stoneware and white porcelain slip. I would pick a glaze that looks starkly different from the porcelain to the dark stoneware. Right, so, and the blue is going to have quite a bit of a shift. The rutile has a real nice shift. Huge shift between the Super T. So, I mean, that's what I would think about with this. I wouldn't want to try to put two different glazes on here. That'd be weird. Too hard to do. I have done them where pour some glaze on the inside and slowly rotate it so I can get the glaze right up to that edge, and then dump the extra out and just wipe that a little bit, and then dump the whole thing in another glaze. That's another way of dealing with these bowls that have a lip on them. These bowls, large bowls, you need a big pan or a huge bowl. So you fill this up, take your glaze, dump it in there, or use like a scoop and bail it into there. And the way I deal with these platter type, and even plates too, would be to dip my fingers in all here. I've got glaze right here. Dip my fingers in the glaze, grab the bowl, in, turn around, maybe one more time, like that, and then kind of roll it in the air to even it out a little bit. Set down, and then go to the bucket, get some of that thick sludge from the side, dip into the glaze, and then touch those finger spots And that usually covers them up pretty well. You might notice a little color shift where your fingers were, but it works pretty well. The other way I've seen it done is to use the tongs and hold one side with the tongs, hold the other side with your, hold the foot like that, right? And go in and come back out, holding it like that. That can work pretty well if you really don't want to get any finger marks on it. But that's
It
sort
seems
of
like
a little
more difficult.
it's a little more precarious, yeah. Not as easy for sure. I think I covered everything I wanted to cover.
What are you gonna put on that?
Probably tomato red.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I love how that it's a real subtle shift, but
Yeah.
that's silvery. I've got a piece on my shelf back there. I'll pull out and show it to you. It's really elegant. Yeah.
There's a vase sitting out here that I didn't see before that looks silvery, and I wondered what they put on it.
Yeah.